Hi, I'm Jazz Obrecht, and welcome to my Talking Guitar podcast with Jorma Kaukonen. Jorma was one of the pioneers of psychedelic music, as heard on this wonderful Jefferson Airplane album called Surrealistic Pillow, which produced the top 10 single, Somebody of Love. This song in particular became part of the soundtrack of the Summer of Love era and helped define the classic San Francisco sound. Guitarists also revere Jorma for another track on the album, his beautiful, acoustic, finger-picked, drop D tune song called Embryonic Journey, which introduced a generation of players to that style of playing and inspired many people, myself included, to buy their very first guitars. The interview you're about to hear took place in November 1996. At the time, I was working on Guitar Player's Psychedelia cover story, and Country Joe McDonald, Barry the Fish Melton, Bob Weir, Sam Andrew, and Jorma were my go-to guys for information on the San Francisco scene. When we spoke, Jorma was living in southern Ohio and setting up his fur-piece guitar ranch. More about that at the end of the interview. I hope you enjoy it.
It's our 30th anniversary of the magazine, and we're doing a cover story on psychedelic music.
Yay.
And I wanted to get some quotes from you and work it into the cover, if that's cool.
Sure.
I've already talked to like Bob Weir and Barry Melton and Country Joe. And,
what do they know about psychedelic music?
And James Gurley.
Yeah, great.
So I wanted to get your opinion on a few things.
Certainly.
Do you think the scene could have happened without the rise of psychedelic drugs?
Well,
which is what Melton's arguing.
What he said, it could have or it couldn't?
He said it could have. It was a natural extension of where guys like him and you were going.
Well, I think there is some truth in that. Of course, we wouldn't be calling it. I don't feel a quotable quote coming out of this, but it wouldn't be called psychedelic music then. Then, of course, psychedelic music has very little to do with psychedelic drugs today, or in my circle, it does. I don't know. That's a good point. I think there is some truth in what he says. Obviously, I've certainly done my share of substances over the years, and it has made me a lot of what I am today, even though I don't do anything today. And I'm not sure whether I would. Sometimes I think I'd be in the same place, but I really don't know. That's a good point. Let's think about it as this conversation goes on.
Yeah. For your dough, what do you think the earliest psychedelic bands on records were from San Francisco?
Ooh, truly psychedelic, because I don't think the first Airplane album was psychedelic.
It's kind of pointing towards that Country Joe EP with bass strings in Section 43 from '66, or maybe the first Big Brother album.
Yeah, I think there's some truth in that. Because the first really, in my opinion, today, psychedelic Jefferson Airplane album would be Baxter's.
Uh-huh. Why do you point to that one, Jorma?
Just because of a lot of the kind of jamming. We were really, I've mentioned this before, we were getting into the technology, we were learning how to play electric instruments in the style that became our sort of benchmark, and that's the first album where I personally, and I think Jack too, really started to stretch out on it.
I'm curious about how you made the incredible leap from your folk and country blues roots, which all the other guys are saying, like you were the foremost guy of all that stuff. I mean, Bob Weir and Barry Melton say you were it, like the hotshot guy in town. And then like 6 months later, you were playing this raging psychedelic music. And I'm curious, like, what happened?
Well, there's a lot of synchronicity there and opportunity. All of a sudden, I went from being an acoustic guitar player to learning how to play the electric guitar, and I was given the opportunity for on-the-job training. And the spirit was really pretty much, everything was left pretty much up to us. Pretty much play what you want to, and a lot of people are saying, how does, like for example, there's a solo a moderately psychedelic solo on Somebody to Love.
Yeah, right,
People,
sure.
right, and people say, how'd you figure that out? And my answer is, I didn't know any better. You know, I mean, I really couldn't figure out how to do a lot of the stuff that I had heard people like Bloomfield do. That I didn't play that way, and I just dicked around until that came out. And that's really what it is, you know. Later on, I sort of refined what it was, but there was a lot of accidental creativity that happened. Companies didn't say, here's a 3-minute song, this is what you got to do. You know, you have to do an intro and an outro and a solo, and we just did pretty much what we wanted to do.
At what point did the volume come in? You know, people playing really loud. I mean, by Baxter's, you were playing through 4 twins, right?
Yeah, we escalated quickly. Well, of course, now with the technology of electric guitar stuff being the way it is, you can get all that overdriven stuff at acoustic volumes. But in those days, it was before all the master volumes and all that, and fuzz boxes and all that stuff. Well, they had fuzz boxes, but they really sucked.
Yeah.
And in order to do it, you had to use volume. And also, if you'll recall back then, the PAs and venues were slim to none. So
yeah.
If you could barely handle the vocal and some of the drums, everything else was pretty much up to the instrumentalists. So it was just a necessity.
Jorma, I noticed that on a lot of the very early psychedelic guitar recordings, there's very little like finger vibrato, a la B.B. King or the Blues Guys.
Right.
Is that because people hadn't seen B.B. play, or what was the deal there?
Well, you know, I think it's just a technical thing. First of all, it involves, and I don't, because that is something that I always did, is use finger vibrato.
But you were pretty much, you know, a lone wolf in that area.
Right. I think it's just pretty much who we learned from. Maybe they didn't see B.B. or Buddy or a lot of these other guys, or maybe it was just too much work. I mean, one of the things, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, because one of the things I like about the guitar is there's a lot of different ways to do things. And I just started out because I really liked that kind of a sound, even using a lot of it in my acoustic playing. And I remember we played a show at some club in Boston, the name of which slips me at the moment, after, I think it was before Surrealist Capillo even, because I think Signe was still in the band, and some guy was at a gig, probably some local honcho, you know, was giving me shit for using so much finger vibrato, and I just thought, who's this fucking guy? I mean, that's just the sound that I liked.
Yeah.
And I did. I used it on everything.
What do you think screwed this scene up?
Well, how do you mean by screwed the scene up?
Well, like I'm hearing from these guys I've been talking to that by the time the press got involved and Jefferson Airplane was on the cover of Life,
right.
It was over.
Well,
as far as the original people were concerned,
right.
The spirit was gone.
Yeah, I think in some respects it's just the nature of the beast. You know, as we all got a little bit older and the things that we were doing that were so much fun, which was playing music for a living, became a career. Then you no longer had a lot of time at a gig to let somebody come and jam with you for an hour. It's like, I don't think so many people thought, hey, I'm doing my show, you know, but it's like you just didn't have the time to do that kind of interaction. And I think egos got involved and stuff like that. I think it is my impression, you know, from the vantage point of 30 years later, to think that that is just the way things are. I think it's really tough to keep an artist community together. It requires a lot of work, and I don't think any of us who were there really put that kind of work in, because there's a bunch of young guys. I mean, I can only talk about myself, but, you know, I've never been poor because I'm not from a poor family, but you went pretty much from living in a one-room apartment to being able to buy almost anything you wanted. And it's kind of hard to keep focus on what it was that made you get that opportunity, I think, you know. And I consider myself personally that I'm lucky to have survived some of those excesses, you know. I was just thinking today, actually, you know, now, because I don't have that kind of cash flow anymore, that I really appreciate when I get a chunk of money, I can do something like, we're just putting up a new barn, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really great, you know. And then back then I might have just bought something expensive and silly, you know, and then let it rust in the backyard or something. I think a lot of it had to do with immature attitudes and not having focus on how cool the scene really was.
Weir said one big change was when people quit dancing and started staring at the musicians.
Yeah, there is that. I didn't think about that. That's
And musicians became icons and holy men to some people.
Right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That is a good point. And I think that certainly is nonsense because we're just musicians.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey, man, I really love the Hot Tuna set that just came out.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Wow. Did you have a hand in that design or any of it?
Well, not as much as I'd like to have to tell you. Just ignore that beep. We'll let whoever it is beeping beep away.
Okay.
Not as much as I would have liked to. First of all, I'd like to go on record saying I'm glad that, and I think they did a good job. They didn't use any of the pictures that I'd picked, and they got some of the liner notes wrong. There's some stuff that we submitted that didn't get used, and obviously I wish that they'd used some of our quotes and stuff. However, that said, I think they did a darn good job, and I wouldn't have minded having more of the pictures be in focus.
Yeah, I can dig that.
But it's been pointed out by a friend that perhaps the people that put it together, that's what their recollection of what it was like back then.
Who among the guys who were the first ones to be playing psychedelic music did you admire? Did you have favorite musicians on the scene?
I think one of my, sure. I think one of my favorite ones in the beginning was Bloomfield, like you recall that Butterfield East West album. I think, and I really liked Elvin Bishop a lot. I wasn't looking at psychedelic music so much per se, although I realized I probably got some of that out of it, but I loved Buddy Guy. I still loved all the electric blues players because I think the essence of what I perceive from my playing psychedelic music is from, the blues genre.
Is it fair to say that people like Moby Grape and Sons of Champlin came on the scene later?
Oh boy, I don't remember when Moby Grape came on. Somewhat later, but But it couldn't have been that much because by the time we're into the '70s, it was almost all over. I'm trying to think about it. Well, Moby Grape Moby Grape was pretty early because Skip was our first drummer. He dropped out, and then next thing you know, within a year or so, they were in Moby Grape. So it depends on what you mean by later. And the Sons of Champlin, I don't remember when they came in.
What's Skip up to these days? Is he still like a street guy in San Jose?
That's what I hear.
Oh, what a drag! And I heard that Bob Mosley is living under bridges in San Diego.
Good grief!
But Barry Melton, man, is a public defender in Ukiah.
Boy, you gotta love that, don't you?
Man, I hope if I get busted up there, he's my lawyer.
There you go.
I
hope you don't get busted anywhere.
Me too, man. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Is it true? I'm going on some old writings that you headlined at the first San Francisco dance concert at Longshoremen's Hall.
We did.
That was October '65.
It was. Yes, it was. It was around Halloween, correct.
What kind of music were you playing at the time? Do you recall?
Well, it would have been pretty much like the stuff on Takes Off.
More folky kind of stuff.
Right.
And then you played at the Monterey Pop Festival, including the year before the famous one.
We played the Monterey Jazz Festival the year before.
Oh, in '66.
Yeah, and then we played the Pop Festival with Signy. We did that. It was still with Signy, right?
At the Jazz Festival.
It's that Jazz Festival and the Pop Festival.
How did you go over at the Jazz Festival? Do you remember?
It's so long ago. It's hard for me to remember. I know that Leonard Feather gave us a scathing review. One of his quotes was about as subtle as a mule kicking down a picket fence, which we took out of context and used for an RCA ad.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Jorma, did the fact that you at one time lived in Pakistan and heard the native musicians there ever have much influence on your playing, do you think?
I think in the beginning it in the beginning it did, and the fact that I've listened to a lot of ethnic music, and the fact that I didn't really know how to play the electric guitar. So I was really open to adapting a lot of stuff, which is where a lot of that stuff like the solo on Somebody's Love and White Rabbit, and a lot of the stuff on Baxter's were really pretty much coming out of just world music and being assumed into my own little world.
You told me one time that your favorite of the Airplane stuff was Bless Its Pointed Little Head.
Correct.
Does that hold true today?
Pretty much. I was thinking that and Baxter's, I think. Although it's funny how you listen to stuff and things you pick stuff out. I recently rediscovered Surrealistic Pillow. I think is a really good album. Even Takes Off, but I think the essence of what the Airplane did is to be found in Pointed Head.
What did Garcia play on Surrealistic Pillow?
He played some guitar on Coming Back to Me. I think he played rhythm guitar on something else. Basically, he was a producer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, because none of us had really been in a band before, and we really wanted to get, to learn how to do that. And Jerry, of course, had been in bands for years, and that's pretty much what his deal was. It's a spiritual advisor, but he's really a producer.
Now, before the plane, when you were playing some folk and country blues with Joplin, what's the bit I read somewhere where Ken Kesey plugged you into a tape delay?
So actually, what happened was when Paul asked me to audition for what was to become the Jefferson Airplane, I came up and Kesey was there, and he had an Echoplex or something like that, and I plugged the guitar into it, and it wigged me out.
You like the sound?
Well, I just kind of liked all that electronic stuff. Set the stage for the excesses to come.
Oh, yeah. Sure did. Now, at one time you were playing with an Ampeg Scrambler?
Yes, my favorite Foztone. I still have one.
That was on Baxter's?
It started on Baxter's, and I used that. I used that until I quit playing with the Airplane.
Now, did you have the 345 on Surrealistic Pillow?
Yes, I did.
Ah.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Actually, I might have just gotten it, but what I was using on Surrealistic Pillow, my recollection now, is a Guild Thunderbird.
Yeah?
Yeah, a Guild Thunderbird. I think that I really started using the 345 on Baxter's.
And the front pickup was for a wah-wah pedal?
Yeah, on the 345. The front pickup, the wah-wah channel, and the back and the neck pickup was the Fuzztone channel.
Now those were pretty damn new devices at that time, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Because I don't think you had any devices on the first record.
No.
Are there recordings around that predate those records?
I don't. There's some tapes around, but I don't think so, no.
Oh, interesting. Can you give me an update on what you're up to these days, Jorma?
Well, let's see. I just have a Christmas album that's coming out, or just came out.
Oh, great.
On Relics. It's me and Michael, and it's coincidentally called Jorma's Christmas.
Oh, happy Christmas, mate.
Happy Christmas. It's actually, I did it. I have a little studio here. It's my first home project.
Oh, great.
And it really came out well. It's got some nifty, some original tunes, as well as What Child Is This, which is Green Sleeves, Silent Night, and a Harry Belafonte song called Baby Boy. I'm getting ready to do a Hot Tuna tour. I'm leaving on Sunday. I'm doing next Monday in LA. I'm doing 2 more instructional videos for Happy Traum.
Oh, you're the first 2 you did were great.
Oh, thanks, man.
In fact, they're the only ones I own.
I love instructional videos. I think they're the greatest. I've got quite a few of them. And then I hope after the first of the year, in December I'm doing a tour with me, Michael, and Pete to support the Christmas album. And then after the first of the year, I hope to record another Hot Tuna record and another Jorma record.
Oh, that's great, man! We can't get enough of those.
And we're working on getting this guitar camp thing rolling. Finally, we've applied for some government grants. The studio is my first building on the property is up and running, and I'm recording projects there. And life is pretty good.
Are you going to have the guitar camp there?
You bet.
I'm happy to report that Jorma realized his dream of creating a ranch that grows guitar players, as he put it, in Meigs County, Ohio. Today, Jorma's Fur Peace Ranch offers a wide array of opportunities for guitarists of all levels, including workshops, concert, jam sessions, online lessons, even facilities for extended stays. For details, as well as updates on what's going on with Jorma, check out his website at furpeaceranch.com. Before signing off, I want to thank my producer, Nick Hunt, and the fine folks at the Southern Folklife Collection at the University of North Carolina. And I hope you enjoy what you've heard. Take care.